Thanks so much, Johnny. And, well, if you've been up all night, you may as well stay up a little bit longer as we welcome you to a hot and sunny Albert Park in Melbourne. Formula One is back in town for the first race of the 2025 season. It's been a long winter, but now it is time we get our questions answered. How will Lewis Hamilton stack up against his new Ferrari teammate Charles Leclerc? Are McLaren the team to beat? Could home hero Oscar Piastri put himself in with a chance of pole position this afternoon? And with 6 fresh faces alongside experienced drivers moving teams, 2025 is set up to be a mouth-watering prospect. Here we go then. Guiding you through all the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin. Alongside me is the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. We're positioned towards the end of the main straight by turn 1. Our eyes and ears on the ground are Rosanna Tennant. Afternoon, Rosanna. Are you ready for the first quali of the year?
I am so ready, Harry. I cannot wait for this one. We've all been predicting what may or may not happen. Finally, we're going to get some answers. But let me tell you, the paddock is heaving. So many people here at the first race of the season. I was walking through the paddock a little earlier on, and I saw Lewis Hamilton being absolutely mobbed by fans. All you could hear was Hamilton, 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 all gathered outside the Ferrari hospitality. And I tell you what, over the last few years, it's always been the Mercedes hospitality that's been buzzing. Now it's the Ferrari one. And you may be able to hear overhead, there's a fly past going on. The Australians putting on a show for us as we get the Formula One season underway. What a wonderful paddock. It's very hot out here, Harry, 34 degrees, and we're expecting rain tomorrow. So today's hot, tomorrow might be very different.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're just a few moments away then from getting the first part of qualifying underway. 3 sessions, split Q1. We'll see all 20 drivers head out to set the fastest laps they can in 18 minutes before the slowest 5 are eliminated. And we continue through the order until we set the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. And Mark, the big story, the global headline is Lewis Hamilton in that Ferrari. So many eyes will be on him to see what he can do this afternoon in his first qualifying session. And so far, he looks like he has been embedding slowly and improving throughout the weekend when it comes to pace.
Yeah, exactly. Got off to a slightly slower start, I guess, yesterday in the first 2 practice sessions, but perhaps that was to be expected as he starts to just come to terms and get to grips with not just the car, but the people and the environment at Ferrari, which of course is very different to the one that he's left at Mercedes. Today, though, in 3rd practice earlier on, he actually was much, much closer to his teammate Charles Leclerc, and the team itself have got a car that's taken giant steps forward, eking its way back towards the front of Formula One, and he might well have joined the Scuderia at exactly the right time.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton is sat in his car, his team surrounding him in his yellow helmet that he's reverted to in the traditional Senna colours that he ran when he first joined Formula One way back in 2007 for McLaren. It is like we're getting a new lease of life from Lewis Hamilton. He is one to watch this afternoon. Andrew, who else have you got your eye on for qualifying?
Well, I mean, it's really close between the top 4. It's really hard to pick a favourite. Yesterday, many people, including Red Bull themselves, were saying they're not in the fight for pole. Well, it certainly looked like Max Verstappen would be earlier today in 3rd practice. I mean, yesterday I predicted Charles Leclerc for pole. If I had to put my money on anything today, I would say probably Lando Norris, who, although he was only 10th in final practice, looked from the sector times he did get together, which he didn't, and he didn't do a complete lap, as if he had the pace just. But I'm expecting pole to be won by hundredths, and so far, could be wrong, but so far it looks like it's shaping up to be the competitive season everybody hoped it would be.
That is the thing, isn't it? We're all picking up so much. Now is the time we want Formula One to deliver at the beginning of the season, ahead of 24 races in the calendar, from Australia all the way to Abu Dhabi in December. We have got a long way to go. It is going to be all about consistency in a championship like this. And could it be Lando Norris's year? Could it be McLaren's year? They're the reigning Constructors champions, so surely they're the ones to beat, Mark.
Well, that's the talk of the town right now, isn't it? That McLaren are in the box seat with the sort of quickest car out of pre-season testing. More importantly than that, and I think what paints a clearer picture is just how they finished last year, as you say, as Constructors' Championships, but also with a very strong car, a very strong team, and a very strong development rate with that car as well. Every development, every component they brought to the car last year brought performance with it, and that's a really good position to be in. So if they can carry on this year the way they finished last, they will certainly start in a strong position.
The first qualifying session of the 2025 Formula One season is officially underway. Green light on at the end of the pit lane, and it's the two Haas cars who lead the traffic jam that is lining up in the pit lane. Christian Horner on the Red Bull pit wall, the team principal, is sat overlooking the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, and just nipped in behind is his one of his men in the form of Liam Lawson, the 11-time Grand Prix starter. We're calling him a rookie, though. He's never raced around this Australian Grand Prix circuit, and it's been actually a bit of a tricky time for Red Bull so far. Power unit issues confining Liam Lawson to the garage for most of free practice 3, but he's going to want to get off to a strong start, particularly being up against such a formidable and, let's face it, teammate crusher, Max Verstappen.
Yeah, that's definitely been the way it's worked over the past few teammates he's had come in alongside him. Max Verstappen is formidable. You saw him yesterday, slightly struggling, a little bit unhappy with his car, and it looked like the signs were that he wasn't on the match, on a par with the likes of Ferrari or even McLaren. But actually this morning in free practice 3, there he was, back again, right at the very front, with enough pace in that to top the timesheets for much of the session. So you can never, ever count Max Verstappen out. It's not been the smoothest start to the weekend for them. We see that over and over again, and when it matters so often, they still are able to deliver.
Oh, I have a problem with the gearbox. No. I can't shift the ball.
And that is one of the rookies in the field, Oliver Bearman, who has had an absolutely horrendous start to his first full season in Formula One. The boy from Chelmsford, backed by the Ferrari Driver Academy. That's what's seen him up into the ranks of Formula One. Well, in free practice 1, he had a massive crash. He was okay, but the car not so. That didn't allow him to get out for free practice 2. He was the first car out in the final practice session earlier this afternoon. And what did he do, Mark, on lap 1? He found the gravel and beached it. It
was the worst possible way he could start a season and a weekend like this. And crucially, of course, it's knocked his confidence, but even more than that, it's lost his ability to get to grips with that car. It's hampered the team in collecting data and information, which is so important to learn how you're going to fine-tune the car over the weekend, how you're going to formulate a strategy going into race day tomorrow. So they are very much on the back foot as a result of that, but I think the biggest problem might be that he's had a huge knock in confidence, and when he does now finally get himself back on track, assuming they can fix this gearbox problem, he's going to be tentative, isn't he? He's not going to want to put a foot wrong, and ultimately that's going to mean he might be slower than normal.
It's not the start he would have wanted. It's been a smooth start for most of the other rookies in the field. The sound you're hearing is one of them, Jack Doohan. Here's Bearman again.
No, it's broken.
And that sounds like a rather dejected Ollie Bearman, insisting his gearbox is broken. He has made it back to the pits. Out on track there, less than 15 minutes already on the clock. And Esteban Ocon in the other Haas is the first man to set a lap time. He's gone with a 1:17.5. The sound you're hearing is one of the Australian heroes on the grid, Jack Doohan, in his first flying lap of the session. And, his second Grand Prix qualifying after he stepped in last time out in Abu Dhabi for Esteban Ocon. He goes to the top of the times with a 1:16.999. Alpine looking like they are in that battle in the midfield, which is split by absolutely nothing, as Hulkenberg and the Sauber now goes to the top of the times.
Yeah, so Hulkenberg, Doohan, both running the soft tyre, of course. That's the fastest of the 3 tyres that Pirelli bring out of the dry range for this weekend. Russell currently on the medium tyre, so that's a tyre that's a little bit slower in terms of overall lap time, but in a race situation should last a little bit longer. And this is all about trying to get through for the big teams out of this first part of qualifying. And if you can hang on to a set of soft tyres, you can of course then use those later in the session to give you an extra chance. A fresh set of tyres gives you a little bit more performance. If you can hang on to a spare set, there's another opportunity to go again on fresh tyres later on as the qualifying sessions roll on.
That's the voice of the former McLaren F1 mechanic Mark Priestley, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin. It's the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Down on the ground in the paddock for us is Rosanna Tennant. You're listening to live coverage of qualifying for the Formula One here in Melbourne, Australia. It's the first qualifying of the 2025 season, and qualifying split into 3 sections. This, the first Q1, with just over 13 minutes remaining, will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers come the end of the session as we make our way through and set the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix. We're racing around Albert Park, just over 5.2 kilometres, 3.2 miles, 14 turns, 9 to the right and 5 to the left, and there are some quick chicanes in here as well. Lando Norris has just made his way through them. The quick left-right of 9 and 10, then it's a short blast down towards the 90-degree right-hander of turn 11, keeping it neat and tidy within the white lines. He's fastest of anybody in the first sector. It's a personal best in the middle sector. Charles Leclerc's Ferrari is currently fastest with a 1:16.4, sweeping round the final corner as the sun glints off the papaya McLaren. The drag reduction system, the rear wing, flies open on the McLaren. He crosses the line, and it's fastest in these early stages by almost half a second for Lando Norris.
I want to say the surprise package for me at the moment of these opening laps is Fernando Alonso. I went down to Aston Martin earlier and said, "Are you as rubbish as you look?" And I was kind of tongue-in-cheek, and he's third fastest, splitting the Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton at the moment.
Have they been sandbagging this entire time and fooling us all? Fernando Alonso, the wily old fox, you can never count him out. Last year he qualified in the top 10, managed to race his way to 8th, and I think that is what Aston Martin will be hoping for again. I think they'll constitute that as a good result if they can get it come the checkered flag on Sunday. But conversely, well, Fernando Alonso's old team look like they are the ones to beat. The Australian home hero, Oscar Piastri, the man who grew up in Albert Park playing football and rugby before he moved to the UK at the age of 14, has just gone second fastest for McLaren. Then it's Leclerc, Alonso is 4th, Hamilton in the Ferrari is about 7 tenths off in 5th, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Albon and Doohan the top 10 as it currently stands. But these are the early stages. The track will continue to improve. Somebody improving, Mark, is Verstappen. Here's Norris first.
A little bit in gravel, turn 6. Keep it on the left side of the car, the floor. Okay, understood.
Turn 6 is proving a bit troublesome when it comes to gravel. Reprofiled barrier there. They brought the gravel closer to the curb as well, and that was causing trouble in free practice 1.
Yeah, so Verstappen has just finished his lap. He lost a little bit of time in the final sector, and that's a feature of this particular circuit. He pops in second place. He's only about a hundredth of a second behind the McLaren of Lando Norris. But one of the features of this track, particularly on a day that's so hot like this, you've got to look after the tyres, prevent them from overheating. We've got track temperatures of over 40 degrees, and these Pirelli tyres, particularly the soft ones, they don't like getting too hot. It's a frustrating game of having to be patient in the early part of the lap to not take too much life out of them, so that you've got a little bit of performance left for the final sector. So Verstappen maybe just pushing a little too hard early on, suffering later on. He'll be able to tweak that though, tweak his driving style, make some changes to the car, even in terms of front wing, for example, the aero levels, and maybe have another shot at it in a minute.
Another shout out, by the way, for a surprise package at the moment. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber is 7th fastest. Nico Hulkenberg, his teammate, 9th fastest. Bortoleto was faster than Hulkenberg. He's a rookie from Brazil in the final practice session, and that is a lot higher than anybody expected to see the Saubers, which are owned by Audi now, ahead of their entry in 2026 officially.
It certainly is, and Jack Doohan actually has just gone 6th for Alpine. That puts Gabriel Bortoleto down to 8th. Bortoleto, the Brazilian driver who won the Formula 2 championship last year. He was actually a McLaren driver, part of their development program. Sauber and Audi paid money to get him out of that deal so he could be a part of Sauber, which will become the Audi factory program. And he's also managed by Fernando Alonso. So can he out-qualify his own manager? Well, right now, it'll be a happy day for both of them if they finish where they are. Alonso's currently 5th, Bortoleto is 8th, and crucially for him at the moment, ahead of his much more experienced teammate, Nico Hulkenberg. Less than 9 minutes left on the clock, though, and more times coming in. Lando Norris is fastest ahead of Verstappen. Piastri is 3rd. Carlos Sainz in the Williams, who was forced out of Ferrari for the incoming Lewis Hamilton, has been showing some good pace so far this weekend, Mark. Indeed, both Williams have. Sainz is 4th, and Albon's just popped himself up into 7th.
Yeah, certainly over one lap, the Williams does look quite fast. And we're still around about half a second, those two Williams off the outright pace of Lando Norris. But even so, that's a reasonable performance for a team that's quite often been right down the back of the grid. So can we see them do something special in qualifying? We're yet to see whether that translates into race pace, maybe a little bit further away in that regard. Yeah, pretty decent. Carlos Sainz, perhaps one of the biggest upgrades for Williams, as a wonderful driver coming in from Ferrari. He's definitely going to bring some level of performance that maybe Williams desperately needed.
I have this drink connector. It's too high up. My helmet is stuck on it. Okay, understood.
That was Max Verstappen there with a bit of an issue with his drinks connection, catching on his helmet by the sound of things. 7 minutes and 48 seconds remaining of Q1. The bottom 5 drivers will be eliminated come the flag when the time gets down to 0. And right now, there are still more questions to be answered. Currently, Norris's fastest, Fernando Alonso, is lighting up the timing screens, but losing time in the final sector. It's still enough to put the Aston Martin up into 5th spot. His teammate Lance Stroll, the Canadian driver, is about to come across the line now. What can he do? Can he show pace as well? Comparatively, that's pretty good for Lance Stroll. Up into 9th, 6 tenths down on Lando Norris's current fastest time. It's Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc, Piastri, Alonso 5th. Russell, Sainz, Albon, Stroll. Hadjar is in 10th, the Frenchman rookie joining Racing Bulls ahead of Doohan. Hamilton is down to 12th ahead of Tsunoda. Bortoletto 14th. Gasly 15th. And at the moment, at risk of being eliminated is Nico Hülkenberg's Sauber, Liam Lawson's Red Bull, Esteban Ocon's Haas, Kimi Antonelli's Mercedes, and Ollie Behrman looks like he's not going to be able to get out. We'll try and find confirmation of that, but he was having gearbox troubles from his very first installation lap.
The lap was good. 10-12 was full of gravel on the exit curb. Unlucky.
And that was why Fernando Alonso's lap fell away from him in that final sector, gravel plaguing him.
Worth making a point about Fernando Alonso, actually. He is brilliant around Albert Park. It's one of his specialist circuits. Not that he's bad anywhere, really, but remember he was about to qualify an Alpine on the front row here a few years ago before he had a reliability problem. Liam Lawson, meanwhile, we're seeing him locking up in the Red Bull. He's having an absolutely torrid weekend as well. He was so slow compared to Max Verstappen yesterday. Didn't get any running this morning, and as you were saying, Harry, he doesn't look like he's going to make it much further at the moment.
No, that's the young Kiwi driver who was promoted from Racing Bulls, Red Bull's junior team, and currently struggling out there on a track that he hasn't raced at before. Trying to put in a quick lap. He's been on the medium tyre so far, which is the slightly slower tyre compared to what he's on now. The Red Bull soft tyre is Kimi Antonelli, who is making his way round the final corner. The man that has the unenviable task of filling in the shoes of Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes, comes across the line now, gets himself up to 14th as his first proper flyer on the soft tyre. More time to come. Well, he'll need to find more time to come to feel comfortable.
That's definitely not enough. He's right on the cusp, and that was a flying lap, although I think it was scrappy. The bit we saw, it didn't look like the cleanest of laps. He wasn't setting the timesheets alight. On our screens, they go purple when they go faster than anybody else has gone. He didn't do that. Clipped the gravel trap at turn 6, as a lot of drivers have been doing, actually, dragging gravel onto the circuit, which is a concern for this weekend. It looks like you got a piece of gravel stuck underneath the front skid of the floor of the car and dragged it all the way down with sparks flying out the back of the car for a whole lap. And whilst that may seem relatively insignificant, it might have just raised the front ride height by a small amount, and that can make a reasonably big difference. You change ride heights on these cars by 0.5 millimetre, so dragging a piece of gravel stuck between the floor and the tarmac can be a significant deterioration in how your car performs.
Well, Antonelli, compared to his teammate Russell, who's about 3, almost 4 tenths off of the fastest pace at the moment, is Lando Norris. Antonelli 8 tenths off, but we'll have to go again then in 4 minutes and 15 seconds that are remaining. There are a lot of furrowed brows down at Haas as they look over at the Haas car and try and find anything they can to maybe even get him out in the last 4 minutes, but it's proving that that's going to be rather difficult. Haas looking like they are having a pretty tough weekend with Esteban Ocon 19th and last of the drivers that have set a lap time. So Haas then with a lot of time to find and a lot of head scratching so far, it seems.
I think Antonelli, we're just seeing a replay, I think that's exactly what's happened. A big stone or piece of gravel wedged underneath the front skid, which runs very, very close to the tarmac, particularly under high speed when the car's aerodynamic load been forced down into the track itself. And that, as I said, can just raise the ride up the car by enough to cause you all sorts of problems. He definitely wasn't happy, but they'll be able to clear it, be able to get it going again, hopefully with just about 3 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, we will be building up to the final flyers to try and progress through to Q2. In the meantime, let's get an update from the paddock. Rosanna.
Ollie Behrman is still in the Haas garage. The team are looking into it, but they are planning to send him out towards the end of the session. But by my calculations, that's pretty soon. So hopefully we'll see the young British driver out fairly quickly. Well,
they've got 3 minutes, less than that now, to try and get him out for at least one lap. But the clock is ticking, and it will be tricky for Ollie Behrman. This is the sound of Carlos Sainz in the Williams, who is currently 8th fastest. Now, the general consensus at the moment, just from talking to other teams, that Williams and their one-lap pace may actually be quite good, enough to disrupt some of the lower top teams. But when it comes to the long-run pace and the race day, maybe that's where they will come unstuck. And indeed, Sainz improves on his time, gets ahead of the man that replaced him, Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton down to 8th. Sainz gets himself up into 7th. Sainz's teammate, Alex Albon, also up there in the top 10 in 9th, just ahead of Stroll. At risk in the last couple of minutes in 16th at the moment. It's Pierre Gasly's Alpine, and Nico Hülkenberg's Sauber, Liam Lawson in the Red Bull, and Esteban Ocon in the Haas. No Ollie Behrman to emerge yet from the pits, and time is running out for the Brits.
Yeah, it's a big queue of cars just filing their way as Lawson already ragged again. He's pushing too hard in that sister Red Bull, teammate of course to Max Verstappen this year, but this is another ragged lap. Runs wide over the curb again. He's coming through the final sector now. Is it going to be good enough? I don't think it is. He's down in P18 right now, and Red Bull must be... Oh, he's run wide again. He's
onto the grass. And is he going to bail out of it? He's not going to have the tyres to do another lap, and that'll be it for Lawson. That'll be done and out. He won't have enough time to go back out and get a fresh set of tyres on and do one more lap with 1 minute and 23 seconds on the clock. The man that replaced Sergio Perez, as they continue to try and find some suitable substitute for the man alongside Max Verstappen, is out of Q1 in his first qualifying for the big team.
And somewhere in Chihuahua, where is it he lives?
Sergio, somewhere in Mexico, Guadalajara.
Someone's smiling quietly to himself, I think, probably sitting on his $18 million payoff and thinking, there you go.
Meanwhile, the man they overlooked, Yuki Tsunoda in the Racing Bulls, has just put his car, the Japanese driver, up into 6th spot. They've been looking rather quick, but we're now into the dying stages. Bortoleto is right on the edge, so too is Gasly. Antonelli needs a quicker time, and he does so. Gets himself up into 10th spot, still not quite on the pace of his teammate. That puts Hajar Doohan in danger. Meanwhile, Pierre Gasly gets himself out of the dropout zone and up into the top 8. Tidy lap from Pierre Gasly, but how much is the track ramping up in these final stages? Isaac Hajar, the French rookie for Racing Bulls, has also been showing good pace and continues that form through and gets the Racing Bull up into 9th. Sainz gets put down to 10th. Hamilton is only in 11th here. Doohan gets himself up into 8th, the other Aussie rookie in the field, as his father, the motorcycle champion Mick Doohan, here this weekend, watches him and his son in his second ever Formula One qualifying. He will progress through into Q2. Lance Stroll is on the bubble. Bortoleto is in 16th. Hülkenberg is 17th. Lawson won't get another go. Ocon is out. Behrman will be out. Albon improves to 7th. Meanwhile, Hamilton is down to 14th, and Kimi Antonelli is in 15th. This is the sound of the 7-time world champion, who needs to put in a decent lap time here. Gabriel Bortoleto is still out on the track. So too is Nico Hülkenberg. They're not lighting up the timing screens, though, in those Saubers. This should be an easy ride for Lewis Hamilton to get himself up and safe, and he does so. Gets the Ferrari up into 6th.
Yeah, it was a close call, and it wasn't the cleanest lap from Hamilton, but that'll do for now. Antonelli just about scrapes through in P15 in the second Mercedes. Only Hülkenberg still on a lap.
Only just, though. Hülkenberg gets up into 16th. Gabriel Bortoleto's put a personal best in the middle sector. Can the Brazilian rookie cause an upset here? Kimi Antonelli's come into the pits. He's in 15th. Could Antonelli be knocked out? He is, in his first session as a Mercedes driver. driver, the replacement for Lewis Hamilton, is knocked out by the reigning Formula 2 champion in a Sauber.
And how about that? Bortoleto in 15th. Hulkenberg, his experienced teammate, only in 17th. Lawson out as well. Ocon out. Behrman didn't get a time. That's not been a good start.
Negative, mate. I've just been bumped.
And that was the voice of Kimi Antonelli's engineer, Pete Bonington. Bono, who will be used to hearing talk to Lewis Hamilton. And Dean Hamilton was knocked out in Q1 3 times in his final 6 races of last season in the Mercedes car. And his successor starts off his career by being knocked out too. What a result that was, though, for the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto. Impressive performance from the Brazilian.
It really was. He's been impressive all weekend, hasn't he? I mean, Nico Hulkenberg is no slouch, one of the most experienced drivers on this grid, and Bortoleto has come in and I think given himself a very good chance of getting a strong weekend, putting a strong weekend together. So yeah, very good showing early on.
Out then at the end of Q1, Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes 16th. Nico Hulkenberg in the Sauber 17th, Liam Lawson in the Red Bull 18th, Esteban Ocon in the Haas 19th, and Ollie Behrman, who didn't even get a proper lap in. Gearbox issues continuing on from his plagued start to Formula 1. What a first session that was to kick things off for 2025, Rosanna.
Yeah, there were some gasps down here in the media pen as we wait for the drivers to come out of qualifying and talk to us. And I have to say, there was a huge cheer as Gabriel Bortoleto managed to make it through from the Sauber garage. Lots of cheering and clapping their rookie driver as he progressed through. And then mixed emotions, really. A very stern-looking Red Bull press officer walking down the paddock, as you might imagine, going to collect Liam Lawson to come and talk to us. And some serious faces in Mercedes too. Not what they were hoping for from Antonelli.
No tyres in the lap.
That was Liam Lawson saying he had no tyres at the end of his lap as he went off into the grass, coming through the left-hander of turn 13 and mowed the lawn and shortcutted his way back to the pits. It's been a tough start for a couple of our rookies then. Liam Lawson in the Red Bull, Ollie Behrman in the Haas, Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes. That is the shock. Kimi Antonelli, billed as a wonder kid. He will be the youngest driver to start a Grand Prix come Sunday at 18 years, 6 months and 18 days. And we have to remember that. These rookies need to learn. They are so young. But it's not the start he wanted. It is for Bortoleto, though.
What position?
Good job there. You are just P15. You just went through. Just about.
I'm not sure I should be happy for that, but I'm actually happy, so good.
Nico Hulkenberg has been out-qualified by Bortoleto on debut, when Hulkenberg actually out-qualified his teammate Kevin Magnussen last year 16-6. And on day one, Gabriel Bortoleto has out-qualified him. Now we know how good Nico is over one lap. It's a good start for Bortoleto.
It really is, and these are the kind of results that you need as a youngster to really catapult yourself forward, to put yourself on a pedestal. Everyone else in Formula 1 needs to sit up and take notice, and it's results like this that make that happen. Conversely, of course, here is Hulkenberg. Quickly.
Yeah, just didn't feel very good, very connected.
Yeah, that just confirming that Nico Hulkenberg just not happy with his car. But conversely to what's happened with Bortoleto, with a very strong showing, the others, Antonelli, Lawson, I think this is what we're seeing is them coming into a fully competitive session for the first time, really. Not in the case of Lawson, but certainly in this new team at Red Bull where the pressure's different. And that pressure ramping up as the session goes on. When you don't get clean laps in, it starts to become frantic. And that's where experience really, really counts. And of course, at the moment, they just don't have that.
It is funny, though, isn't it? When you look at Liam Lawson, he wasn't knocked out in Q1 off the top of my head that many times. Maybe once in 6 attempts last year in the RB, and then he steps up into the Red Bull, and it's straight away. It just showcases is this car trickier to drive than anything else.
So just an update on Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Mercedes is saying that they had bib damage on his car during his second run. That was the sparking that you saw, Mark, as he was going through turns 9 and 10. They say that caused a loss of performance for his final 2 laps, unfortunately. So car rather than driver, it seems, up to a point at least.
Okay, well, at least Kimi Antonelli then gets some sort of reasoning for that. But as the sun continues to beat down. The temperature's hot up above 30 degrees, the track temperature 40 degrees. As in Albert Park, the wildlife crawling around this lake that is the middle of this temporary street track that gets created at this time of year before being turned back into a public park, does provide for some spectacular one-lap qualifying. So if we look at those a little further up, good lap times, Mark, from Jack Doohan, from Isaac Hadjar, the other rookies, and Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, in the Aston Martin. I have to say, I was expecting Alonso and Stroll to both be struggling to get out of Q1 after the practice sessions we've seen.
Yeah, fully agreed. Not just because of the times they've been able to post earlier on in the weekend, but they've been struggling and looking like they've been struggling, not happy with the car, not able to make it do what they wanted. But, you know, sometimes the conditions, the temperatures can just swing a small amount and they can really start to suit one car over another. Certainly that Aston Martin looks like it's come alive. But you're right, you know, Doohan, very solid job from him. There'll be huge pressure on him in the same way. Hadjar as well in the Racing Bull. The pressure hasn't affected them negatively. So you get a good solid lap in relatively early on, and it just takes away some of the franticness that happens when you don't do that, and the time starts ticking away and you start to panic a little bit, particularly as a young driver. I remember it very well inside the team. One of the things was to try and keep these drivers calm and cool and collected as the pressure, we know, is starting to ramp from the outside as the clock ticks down.
Does indeed. Q2 now back underway. 14 minutes and 18 seconds counting down, and straight out onto the track is the reigning world champion Max Verstappen, followed by the two Ferraris, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, just making his way through turns 1 and 2 now. It starts to ramp up then, doesn't it? We've lost 5 drivers. We'll lose the next 5 slowest drivers come the end of these 14 minutes. This is the battle to get into the top 10, and if you look at Ferrari, or Leclerc has looked quick all weekend, and Hamilton for his first weekend has progressively closed down that gap with Leclerc with each session that's gone by.
Yeah, it's easy to look at Lewis as a 7-time world champion and say, well, look, he's so good that he should be able to jump in that car and immediately deliver. But the reality is, it's like learning to sort of write or type with a new computer, or it's like learning to ride a new type of bike. There are nuances to it. There are sort of details that you have to get your head around. They're so connected with these cars. It's going to feel different in a Ferrari to the way it felt in a Mercedes. The systems are different. The way it delivers power is going to be different. And on top of all of that, you're working with an entirely new team of engineers. Those relationships are so key, and they take time to build. So it's perfectly understandable to think that Lewis, as long as he keeps progressing, can build towards a really strong performance. Whether we get one today that's going to be able to match that of Charles Leclerc, I'm not sure. Early signs are maybe not, but he is through this session. We'll see how he gets on in Q2.
If you're just waking up with us this morning, good morning, well earned. You're listening to live coverage of qualifying ahead of the first race of the year in the 2025 Formula One season. We're in Melbourne, in Albert Park, Australia, and we're into the second part of qualifying. 12 and a half minutes left. We had the first part of qualifying. We've eliminated our slowest 5 drivers. Some of the bigger names to fall in that session were the likes of Kimi Antonelli, the rookie in the Mercedes. That is Lewis Hamilton's replacement. A suspected issue catching a bit of the gravel underneath his car, slowing him down in his final attempt at getting out of Q1. And Liam Lawson in the Red Bull, the man who has the unenviable task of stepping up against Max Verstappen, also out. He's had a tough weekend so far. And the British driver Oliver Bearman in the Haas having a bit of a torrid weekend straight from Friday's free practice 1 session. A crash in FP1, didn't get out in FP2, beached his car in FP3, and then in the first lap of Q1 a gearbox issue for Bearman. He will start, if he can start, the Grand Prix on Sunday, 20th and last. But here we go then, into 11 minutes and 40 seconds remaining, and it is the battle to get into the top 10. Guiding you through the coverage is myself, Harry Benjamin, the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley. Alongside us too is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Down in the paddock for us is Rosanna Tennant, and fastest of all so far is Max Verstappen with a 1:15.6.
You can never ever rule out Max Verstappen. It's a very early lap, of course, in the session, but it's a 1:15.6, as you say. Couple of tenths behind is Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and then it's Lewis Hamilton a couple of further tenths behind him, which has been roughly the gap between the two Ferrari drivers all weekend long. It's now Lando Norris next, but he's on a fast lap now, so we'll see what he can do. George Russell now up to second. The times are going to keep tumbling. Everybody on these soft tyres now, going for the fastest lap possible. They've got to get inside the top 10, of course, to make it through to Q3.
Carlos Sainz crossing the line in his Williams to put himself fifth fastest at the moment of the 5 runners that have gone. Alex Albon actually a bit quicker in the other Williams who crosses the line, but Sainz coming back here after an absolutely phenomenal race win in Melbourne last time around after his appendix surgery. He doesn't think the win is on this time around, but so far the progress seems to be encouraging for Williams as a whole. And if you can hear some roars in the background, it might be because Oscar Piastri has just put his McLaren up into that P1 position. We are setting the grid for the Australian Grand Prix in Q2. This session that you're hearing now will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers. The fastest 2 at the moment are Piastri and his teammate Norris. Less than a tenth between them, Mark.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be a story of this season, isn't it? How is it going to play out between these 2 McLaren drivers? If they have the car we think they have, which is one that's going to be very, very fast, maybe even a title contender, which one of those 2 is going to come out on top, Piastri or Norris? There's not much between them on track. I don't think there's much between them in most people's eyes as drivers. A little bit more experience, of course, on the side of Norris. But as I said earlier, you can never rule out the likes of Verstappen. I don't think Mercedes are going to be too far behind. And those 2 Ferraris, Charles Leclerc and this year, Lewis Hamilton, will have something to say about it all as well.
This is the sound of Fernando Alonso from a few moments ago, making his way through the fast left-right sweepers of turn 9 and 10, and he had a bit of a scary moment there, didn't he, Mark?
One of the things I always revel at when I see Fernando Alonso is how quickly he's able to catch a slide. He's very reactive. At 43 years old, he's got cat-like reactions, but that was a big, big moment, very, very fast. Stepped a wheel onto the gravel, but managed to save it.
Turn 10, left-hand side, correct?
Yeah.
That was, I think we just about caught that. So Carlos Sainz asking the team to check the floor after running over the gravel in the same place we just saw Alonso run wide to on the exit of 10.
And I think the same place that Kimi Antonelli must have damaged the bib on the front floor of his car as well. Exit of turn 10, if you do run wide, you sort of beach the car over the fairly aggressive curves, and it feels like there's a little step halfway along, and it almost launched Carlos Sainz into the air. I think the same sort of thing might have happened to Kimi Antonelli, and once that bib was damaged and we saw it dragging around, creating sparks all the way through, I thought it might be a stone underneath, but if the bib was actually broken, that would equally have a detrimental effect on how the car handles.
9 times set so far. We're about to see the 10th from Isaac Hadjar, the French rookie in the Racing Bull, who finished second in Formula 2 last year, gets a promotion to try his hand in Red Bull's junior team, puts himself up into 10th. Gasly in the Alpine crosses the line to go 8th. Jack Doohan, that's the sound you're hearing now, having to fight the steering wheel of that Alpine, just slightly coming out of the final corner before he gets his foot down and puts the blue and pink Enstone car into 11th spots, just behind Hadjar, but ahead of Stroll.
Yeah, it's a reasonably good showing, I think, from Jack Doohan so far this weekend. I mean, 11th won't be good enough, of course, to make it through into the final part of qualifying, but perhaps that's a little bit hopeful for him. But he's got to keep it clean, keep it on the racetrack, keep improving, and that's really the thing that any team is looking for from a rookie driver, and so far he's doing just that.
Good lap from Yuki Tsunoda. The Japanese driver gets himself up into 6th, about half a second off, with just over 7 minutes remaining of Q2. It's Oscar Piastri fastest, on 1 minute 15.4. Then less than a tenth separates him from his teammate Norris. Then it's Verstappen in 3rd. George Russell is 4th. Charles Leclerc is 5th. Tsunoda, Albon, Hamilton, Gasly and Sainz make up the top 10. And if it ends like this, the drivers that would be eliminated would be Isaac Hadjar in 11th, Lance Stroll in 12th, Gabriel Bortoleto, Alonso who's yet to set a time, and Doohan, I believe he must have had his lap time deleted because we did see him cross the line a few moments ago, so he'll have to go again with now 6.5 minutes on the clock. One man who has barely been able to get a full lap completed in any session so far this weekend is the British Haas rookie Oliver Bearman. Rosanna's catching up with him.
Ollie, I can imagine that was a difficult session to go into with the lack of experience you've got around this track in that car. How did you feel, and what was the problem in the car?
Yeah, I would have liked to have done some laps, of course, in qualifying. It made my life very difficult by by performing badly, not up to standard in the free practice sessions, and of course lost a lot of laps. And the issue with the gearbox kind of compounds and pretty much sums up the weekend.
Can it be fixed for tomorrow's race, though?
I hope so. I mean, we haven't understood exactly what happened, but I think we'll be okay.
19 years old, Ollie Bearman. Stunning performance when he was catapulted into the Ferrari in place of Carlos Sainz in Saudi Arabia. Three more Haas outings that year, replacing Kevin Magnussen on the odd occasion, and showed himself well. It's not the weekend we expected to see from Ollie Bearman, but he'll be hoping to rebuild and hopefully get at least a race under his lap once we go lights out on Sunday's Grand Prix. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's hope it only gets better from here for him. We're about to see lap times from the two Ferraris. Hamilton crosses the line. He's still about just under half a second off the lead time from the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc about a tenth quicker than him. So they're not on the pace of the leaders, as we've seen in free practice towards the end of FP3. They certainly weren't able to match the likes of McLaren or Verstappen, even the Mercedes at times, particularly in the hands of George Russell. So Ferrari with a little bit of work to do, certainly over the one lap pace. And I just hope, or I wonder, whether with 4.5 minutes to go and everyone's going to come out and do one more flying lap, I would imagine, whether they can hang on. Can Hamilton hang on to stay inside the top 10 and make it through into that final part of qualifying? I think it's going to be close.
At the moment, at risk is Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber, and we await lap times from Alonso and Jack Doohan. They'll get one shot at it once we come back out to play, but all quiet out on track, bar the two Ferraris that are making their way slowly back. Here's Hadjar on the radio.
Check the flow, so exit of 6. Loud and clear.
I think many a driver has said that so far this weekend. Check the floor. Another one running out wide in turn 6. And we've just seen, I think, Mark, why Doohan's lap got deleted.
Yeah, it got very, very wide. And yeah, on the little replay we saw, it definitely looks like all four wheels outside of the white lines, which means he got an instant lap time deletion. So he has still got work to do. But as I said earlier on, he's had a solid performance so far. The pressure, of course, ramps because he'll only get one more opportunity as they all queue and slowly file out of the pit lane. 3.5 minutes to go. They're going to be trying to find a bit of space on the racetrack ahead of one final lap. And this is the lap that has to count for those who are not quite inside that top 10 right now. And Doohan currently last of the runners as we stand.
Why do they queue and go so slowly in the pit lane before they come out?
Well, it's because there are rules now to stop you going very slowly out on the racetrack, which is what they all used to do. They slowed right down towards the end of a lap to make some space. There was a rule banning that because it was dangerous. So now they do exactly the same thing, just in the pit lane, trying to create the space there. It is a safer way to do it. It's not a great look for Formula One. It looks like an enormous car park and people queuing to get out of a tight space, but it is safer than doing this on a racetrack when other cars will be running around at full flying speed.
Well, the temperatures are high here in Melbourne, 29-30 degrees, track temperature around 40 degrees, although the cloud is rolling in, overcast over this Albert Park circuit. No rain in the forecast for the rest of this day, but it does change within a split second in Melbourne. The rain currently is forecast for Sunday's Grand Prix. How will that shake things up? Well, before we even get there, we have to set the grid for it, and that is what we're doing now. Live coverage of qualifying ahead of the first Grand Prix of the Formula One season, with just over 2 minutes left of this second part of qualifying. We've got 15 drivers. We're going to eliminate the slowest 5 in this session, and at the moment it's Hadjar in the Racing Bulls, Stroll in the Aston Martin, Bortoleto in the Sauber, and lap time still to be set from Alonso and Doohan. It's the two McLarens who are currently fastest.
Yeah, 2 quick things. There's a big queue in the pit lane of guys waiting, as I said, trying to make that space. They're going to be close in getting around a lap and starting a lap before the clock runs out. It should be okay, but it is going to be tight. And the other point is the projected knockout time, the time you're going to need to get through inside the top 10.
Oh, Bortoleto having almost a massive crash coming out of turn 3. There's a little bit of a curve that lifts you up. He manages to catch the car before he slams straight into the wall. Superb reaction time from the Brazilian, but it's cost him time.
Yeah, that's ruined the lap, unfortunately. Massive snap of oversteer. I was just going to say the projected knockout time is a 14.9, which at the moment is exactly the time that Lewis Hamilton's done. Sorry, 15.9. That's what Lewis Hamilton currently has on the board. It's going to be close.
It is tight out there. 1 minute to go then, and in trouble are the likes of Gasly. He's down in 9th. Sainz is on the bubble in 10th. Lap times are coming in. Jack Doohan needs to put in a clean lap. He is out there now, making his way down Lakeside Drive towards the fast sweepers of turn 9 and 10. Fernando Alonso needs to put in a lap time as well. He was one of the last to come out of the pits. We've got a yellow flag out on track as well. Will it come back in, or is it something more serious? When a yellow flag is out, if you're in that zone, you have to lift off and be prepared to stop. And it's Lewis Hamilton who is facing the wrong way round on the exit. That looks like a turn 10 with back green flag running. But how many laps did that ruin for drivers? Doohan has had to lose time in that middle sector. This is the sound of the Australian. Can he make it into the top 10 at the first time of asking in 2025? No, he can't. Doohan is out in 13th. Isaac Hadjar is improving his time in 11th. Carlos Sainz needs to get a bit of a hurry on too in the Williams. He's right on the cliff in 10th. Stroll is down in 12th. Doohan won't get another go. Bortoleto has come into the pits. He is done. Fernando Alonso is on a lap right now, but it's not lighting up the timing screens. Hadjar does improve, but stays 11th and is out. Tsunoda takes the flag. He'll make his way through up into the top 10. So too does Sainz. He improves. What about his teammate, the Thai driver Alex Albon? He also improves and stays in 9th. That puts Gasly down into 10th. Max Verstappen, who is safe and clear already, up in 3rd, but looks like he's just having a bit of fun out there as well. Fastest in the first sector, fastest in the middle sector, and he may well be fastest in the final sector too. All eyes then on Fernando Alonso, who is currently 15th and last of the drivers. He's making his way round the final corner now as the Spaniard, who embarks on an important season for Aston Martin, to the line. Can he get into the top 10? No, he can't. He misses out. Alonso down in 12th position, just ahead of his teammate Lance Stroll, and that will be Q2 done and dusted. It's Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls out in 11th. The two Aston Martins, Alonso and Stroll, 12th and 13th. Jack Doohan in the Alpine starts 14th, and Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber 15th.
Yeah, and that was close. We're going to get a replay now of what happened to Lewis Hamilton. Oh, he just got on the throttle a little bit too early, desperate to try and push towards the end of the lap. Turn 11.
Yeah, it was out of 11, wasn't it?
Yeah, rear wheel just spun up. He lost control and round he went. And luckily, maybe luckily for him, because there was yellow flags out as he was pointing the wrong way, and it may have hampered others' laps as they went through that zone. Nobody really out-qualified him. The track was a little bit slower towards the end, and he gets away with it. He got through in P6, but he will live to fight another day and get into the final part of qualifying.
Oh, just saw an onboard of Gabriel Bortoleto in his big moment on the exit of turn 4. A bit of elevation with the curb there and the whole rear of the car heading to the wall, and he saved it.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Pushing hard and apologising, but I would call that a successful first qualifying for Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber, 15th, ahead of Hulkenberg and through into Q2.
Yeah, exactly right. Just to out-qualify Hulkenberg in itself is, I think, no mean feat. So well done to him. Lewis Hamilton back in the car and then got out of, back in the garage, got out of his car, which is slightly unusual in between these two sessions. So he's back in it now. Maybe they've done some sort of adjustment to something like his belts or his seat, but he's now getting strapped back in, and he will get an opportunity to have another go in Q3.
So then, just to reiterate who we have lost so far: Isaac Hadjar in 11th in the Racing Bulls ahead of Alonso, Stroll. Then it's Doohan and Bortoleto. In Q1, we lost Kimi Antonelli in the Mercedes, Nico Hulkenberg in the Sauber, and in the Sauber, and then the two Haas cars, Ocon and Behrman, didn't manage to get out to set a competitive lap time. We also lost Liam Lawson, the young Kiwi driver who gets the promotion up to Red Bull alongside Verstappen. It's been a tough weekend for him so far. Rosanna's talking to him.
Liam, where did it get away from you in that qualifying session?
Just the last lap. I think we're on a decent lap that would have probably at least got us through to Q2. And then I just made a mistake through the last sector and went off. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, obviously. Not where we want to be. But but obviously missing out on practice this morning didn't help. So we'll obviously, I'll be learning during tomorrow's race and trying to move forward.
In terms of the laps you have done, how pleased are you with the pace you've shown? Is it near the target the team perhaps have set you?
I haven't really done many. I mean, yesterday we were definitely building up. I think this morning would have been good to do those soft tyre runs, because today is really, for most people, just been quali prep with the tyres that everyone's been using. They've just been on softs. So, not having that is tricky to gauge. But obviously where I'm starting is not where the target is.
Liam Lawson speaking to Rosanna Tennant after being knocked out down in 18th position. Do you think Red Bull will allow him the time to improve, to progress? It's only round one. He is a rookie. He's never raced here.
Well, look at their history. Do they give people much time? Not very often. One thing I would say is that they've not always had a ready-made replacement to step in. I mean, we saw Sergio Perez hang on to his drive for a very, very long time despite poor results. So, look, Hadjar has an opportunity. If he keeps working well, if he keeps progressing, and if he can show really strong signs, all he can do is put pressure on the main team, on the Red Bull team, to start looking at him seriously as a contender. But Liam Lawson, of course, has to do exactly the same. It's all about your results. It's all about what you're able to deliver. So it's really in the hands of those two drivers.
Just seeing a little bit of an incident between Russell and Leclerc. Russell has been noted for impeding Charles Leclerc coming into turn 4. Leclerc having to do a bit of a snap there. Is that an impeding, Mark?
It looked like it to me, yeah. I mean, he literally had to go around him. So, yes, I would say that definitely was.
We've got one Mercedes still in the fight in George Russell. But, Rosanna, we lost the wonder kid, Kimi Antonelli, down in 16th.
Yes, that wasn't what people were expecting, I think. I think they were definitely expecting him to advance through to Q2 and hopefully Q3, but I've just been having a chat with him and he said he could feel that lump of gravel that got stuck underneath his car and gave him that damage to the bib of his car. You could see it actually on the screens down here in the paddock. The car was sparking all the way through the rest of the lap after he'd had that excursion. So disappointing for him, but I did put it to him that from the pace he's seen of the car so far and the fact that we've got changeable conditions tomorrow, rain is forecast, does he feel he can progress and move up through the grid? And I think he feels like there is a possibility and a confidence there that they can. And talking of weather, at the moment it's about 34 degrees, but it's feeling a bit cooler than it did at the start of the session. And if I look over towards the other side of the sort of inlet of Melbourne, towards sort of Geelong, there are some dark clouds. So I'm not sure whether the rain is going to get here this evening. It's meant to come tomorrow, but at the moment those clouds are looking pretty ominous, Harry.
Well, I think it is a saying in Melbourne, isn't it? That, the rain, if the rain comes, it will be here in 30 minutes and then leave again.
No, that's if you hear a kookaburra sing.
Ah, the kookaburra. That is.
Yes.
Well, we better listen out then for the kookaburra. Have you heard?
Or laugh. A kookaburra laugh. I'll have a listen out.
Could you give an example?
There you go.
Wonderful.
Radio gold.
Can't believe you did that.
Thank you, Rosanna Tennant.
Rosanna.
And to those of you who are just waking up to the tones of Rosanna Tennant's kookaburra in the UK this morning, welcome along to 5 Live's coverage of Formula One qualifying ahead of the Australian Grand Prix. It's a big day of sport, so make sure you get your power naps in tactically where you can. We've got the Women's League Cup final, Manchester City against Chelsea from midday, and then it's Six Nations action, Italy, Ireland from 2:15, and then we'll have coverage of Wales against England from 4:30. So get those naps in where you can to make sure you last the full day. Right now, though, you've got to stick with us because we are about to go into the crunch point of qualifying, the fight for pole position, the first pole of the year. 10 drivers fighting it out. Mark Priestley, the former F1 mechanic, is alongside me. So too is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Mark, who's your pick for pole?
Well, I was just about to say, it's almost impossible to call it, isn't it? I mean, for all the talk of change and new drivers and rookies down the back of the field, right up at the front, it's pretty much exactly as we finished last season. It's 2 McLarens versus 1 Red Bull, and there is just about a tenth between them at the end of Q2. Nothing splitting Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. I just can't call it, which is great.
Andrew, do you dare call?
I think if everyone gets their optimum laps or as close to optimum as they get in Formula One, it's Norris. He's just got that little edge of pace, and I think McLaren just have that little edge of pace over everybody else. Just a bit, though. He's got to really nail everything.
He has. Could Norris break the hearts of the Australian fans, hoping for an Oscar Piastri pole position? Piastri fresh with a multi-year contract extension in his back pocket, feeling confident. The green light is on at the end of the pit lane. 10 minutes and 50 seconds remaining. How will this final Q3 session work, Mark? What's the usual run plan that the 10 drivers do?
Well, you're going to go out now and just get a feel for the current conditions, and that might seem strange to people because it was only a few minutes ago they were out, but here's Gasly quickly.
Looks pretty dark.
It's exactly what I'm talking about. He says it looks pretty dark, and actually looking out the commentary box window, it is very cloudy, it's a little bit dark, still very, very warm, but these changes, these small elements of cloud cover and a drop or a raise in temperature can make a difference. So when I talk about getting a judge or a feel for these conditions as they are right now, that's what I mean. The small temperature difference changes the way the tyres interact with the racetrack. So you're going to go and get a banker lap in now, try and get an early lap in, a solid one of course. That'll allow you then to come back into the pits, take a breath, get a fresh set of tyres, and then go again towards the end for one final lap and a flurry of activity to try and set the grid.
This is the sound then of the Australian hope, Oscar Piastri, making his way through the left-hander of turn 4. Positions the car to the left-hand side before he swings it into the right-hander of 5 and threads the needle down to turn 6. The gravel to your left, so many have been running out wide there. Piastri keeps it neat and tidy, and that catapults him down Lakeside Drive, the Albert Park Lake, to his right-hand side as he fast approaches the first left-hand sweeper of turn 9. Chucks it into the left, then he's into the right. We've seen many cars head off into the gravel there already this weekend. Not so much for Piastri. Flicks the button to get the DRS open. The rear wing flap flies open before it slams shut as he hits the braking zone for the left-hander, for the right-hander of 11, followed by the second right-hander of 12. Before you know it, there's just 2 more corners left, and he runs out wide on the exit of the penultimate corner and dips the wheel into the grass and loses time. Keeps it going round the final corner and across the line for Oscar Piastri. It's fastest, but that would have cost him time.
Yeah, it will. 2 slightly different approaches to the lap by the look of it between the 2 McLarens. Lando Norris going hard in the early part of the lap, tailing off towards the end, and Oscar Piastri exactly the opposite. We saw him right at the end of that lap, pushing very, very hard, just overdoing it a tiny bit. The 2 McLarens at the moment have Piastri in front of Norris, but Charles Leclerc has popped his way in front of the pair of them in the Ferrari. Norris had his lap time deleted.
He did. Norris needing to get a lap time on the board there, but we've got plenty of time still, 8 minutes and 20 seconds. So these are the first gambits, but of course the track conditions could change. We saw glimpses of that throughout practice. Suddenly the temperature changed, perhaps the wind picks up, and maybe then the track slows down. Not slowing down so far yet for Max Verstappen, who goes fastest in its provisional pole in these early stages. 1:15.6 for the Dutchman ahead of George Russell. Then it's Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri and Lewis Hamilton, the 5 drivers that have so far set times. Make that 6th with Carlos Sainz coming across in 6th for the Williams.
So the McLaren drivers have now just piled a whole heap of pressure on themselves. Piastri got a lap time in, but he's only 4th after that mistake at turn 13. Norris hasn't got a time at all. So they've only got now 1 run, and they've got to balance that risk-reward thing much more than Verstappen and Russell do, who've gone 1st and 2nd with times only a couple of hundredths of a second apart. So that's...
It was on the exit of turn 4 is where he went wide.
For Norris, yes. So between them, they've kind of messed that up, the 2 McLaren drivers. Here's Norris's radio.
Exit turn 6. I'm going over it west so far, so double checks, please.
So 2 mistakes within 2 corners from Norris there. That's not a good start to his final qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, he's a long way off Charles Leclerc, his teammate, in 7th place, but he was running used tyres on that first run, and Leclerc had new.
Thank you very much, Andrew. But at the moment then, it is Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Piastri, Albon up to 5th ahead of Tsunoda. Then comes Hamilton, Gasly and Sainz, the 9 drivers that are set times, with Lando Norris then putting pressure onto himself to deliver another lap time, and so too for his teammate Piastri, who is 4 tenths off, having made a mistake in the penultimate corner and running into the grass. as Verstappen then comes up into the pits. If you are just waking up and expecting to hear Weekend Breakfast with Jeanette and Ellie, they will be here after we head off and conclude qualifying, just coming up after 6 o'clock this morning. Right now, though, we're getting into the closing stages of qualifying for the first Grand Prix of the year. The fight for pole is on, and at the moment, Rosanna, it's advantage Max Verstappen.
It is, but look, we've got 6 constructors in the top 6 positions. How great is that? This is what 2025 is going to be about, isn't it, Harry?
Absolutely. Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Williams, and a Racing Bulls.
It's great stuff, isn't it? I do think this is going to be the story of the season, just how close things are, and clearly we've just seen a replay from Max Verstappen. There is still more time to come from that Red Bull as he ran wide and over a curb. The thing about getting a good lap in first, as Andrew said, first of all, it ramps up the pressure on those that didn't do it. But if you're a George Russell or a Max Verstappen sitting back in your garage now with a decent banker lap in place, it gives you the opportunity to just iterate from it. Just understand where you left a little bit of time on the table, going slightly deeper on the brakes into a corner, pushing a little bit more in another corner. If you're Lando Norris, you're still trying to figure out where the lap time is coming from. You've still got to deliver, so you've got to be slightly more cautious than those guys currently sitting at the front can be.
Yeah, Norris has to come back on what he did on the first run, whereas the other two, they've got the luxury of just being able to push that little bit further, knowing that it can't be that bad for them. Whereas if Norris gets this wrong, he's going to be 10th on the grid.
So far, Mark, who outside of the top contenders has impressed you with what you've seen in qualifying?
Well, once again, the Williams are in that mix, which I think is great. You know, to find both of the Williams inside the top 10, I think that was something that we perhaps wouldn't have said we might have expected given their form at the end of last year. But both drivers, Sainz and Albon, delivering consistently good lap times over the course of this weekend through practice. So building towards this, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise because these are the signs that we've seen coming, even in pre-season testing, some quick laps from the Williams. But it's a positive display from them to start the season.
It's been 20 years since Williams had both cars into Q3 in Melbourne. Any takers as to who those drivers were? Any takers? 20 years ago, Williams?
It'd be Mark Webber and...
oh no!
Heidfeld.
Well done, he saved it at the end. Webber and Heidfeld in 2005. Showcasing, well, could Melbourne be 20 years in the making for a team like Williams? Right now, Albon is sitting pretty in 5th, actually ahead of teammate Carlos Sainz, and we know there was pressure coming on Albon for this year to be able to match and hold his own against the experienced talent of Carlos Sainz, and so far he hasn't looked out of his depth at all, making his way into this qualifying session. Okay then, here we go, the last few minutes of qualifying as we find out who will start on pole position for the Australian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen has the advantage, but George Russell in the Mercedes is proving a thorn in his side. And what about the two McLarens? After mistakes on their first runs, both Piastri and Norris have to go again and make it count. And you cannot rule out Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari either. He's right up there too, with the midfield battle tight as ever, and Lewis Hamilton in the other Ferrari improving with every lap around this Albert Park. It's about to get tasty here in Melbourne. The fight for pole and setting the grid ahead of Sunday's Australian Grand Prix to kickstart the season is on.
Yeah, and it's going to come down to the finest of margins, isn't it? Who's going to make the fewest tiny little errors? And there'll be errors that we can't even see. So small will they be, but those are the things that make the difference between a pole position lap and one that might just be a few hundredths of a second slower, but that could make you 3rd or 4th on this grid. That's how close things have been. They're making their way around now, warming up the tyres and brakes, getting everything into the right temperature windows. Crossing the line goes the very first McLaren of Oscar Piastri to start his flying lap. Here we go.
I'm nervous, Mark. I'm excited. I don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next couple of minutes. It could go either way as Oscar Piastri does indeed embark into the braking zone of the right-hander of turn 3. The next corner up will be a left-hand sling into 4. Many cars run wide there and ruin their lap time. Piastri has so far managed to keep it cool, calm and collected. The mistake he made on his first lap was right at the end in the penultimate corner, running wide onto the grass. Could Piastri deliver something special here in front of the home home fans. Could he put an Aussie on pole at their home race for the first time in modern Formula One history? He'll be vying to try and do it, but right now he is not able to improve on his Max Verstappen's current fastest time. Who is, though? Lando Norris, fastest of anybody in the first sector.
Yeah, so in the first sector, Norris quicker than his teammate and quicker than Verstappen. Verstappen can't match it, but there is nothing between them. A tenth between Norris and Verstappen as they go through the first part of the lap. Piastri's going to be the first of these three to complete his lap. He comes out the final corner. DRS flap wide open, down towards the line. Let's see what he's got as he crosses the line. Oh,
it's enough to go. Provisional pole for Oscar Piastri, and the crowd goes wild. But can Lando Norris prevent it and break Aussie hearts? He can. Norris to the top. It's provisional pole for the British racer. It's a McLaren 1-2, but can Max Verstappen do anything about it? He lost time in the first sector. Fastest of anybody in the middle sector. One final corner to go. The rear wing flap flies open. He gets the DRS to the line for the reigning champ. It's not going to happen for him. He puts himself up into third. Russell down to fourth. But what about the two Ferraris? This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton in his first qualifying session for the Scarlet team. Has 2 corners left to go. He's currently down in 9th spot. He's on a decent lap though. Round the final corner, his teammate has bailed out. Leclerc will have to settle for 5th. Could Hamilton find anything? He can, but he'll have to start behind his teammate. It's Leclerc 5th and Hamilton 6th. Right now, Gasly is best of the rest, up in 7th. Sainz puts himself up into 8th for Williams. Can his teammate Alex Albon deny him and out-qualify him? The Thai racer can. What a lap from Albon in the Williams. It's a top 5 in Melbourne for the British team. He out-qualifies both Ferraris and his teammate, with Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. But it's Lando Norris who secures pole position ahead of the Australian Grand Prix.
Wow, what a way to start the season, locking out the front row for McLaren. They're a happy bunch, which is exactly how they finished last time out. Max Verstappen lost a load of time in the final sector. He ran wide, dipped a wheel into the gravel. That's where a lot of his lap time disappeared to. There was more time in that Red Bull than we finally saw. But here's Lando Norris, your pole sitter.
That is pole. Not a bad way to start the year. Well done, everyone. Unbelievable car. Amazing work all winter. Thank you so much. Let's keep it up, baby.
Lando Norris gets out of his McLaren, puts his steering wheel back in, and will celebrate with a successful start to this 2025 season. 97 days since he started on pole position at the final race of 2024, and he follows it up with a pole position in Melbourne. He may well break the hearts of the Australians, but it's a McLaren front row lockout, their first front row lockout in Australia since 2012. And it's the start that Zach Brown, that Andrea Stella needed, isn't it, Mark?
Unbelievable stuff. Really, really good way to start a season for the whole team. Both drivers will be feeling very good about that because the gaps between them were almost nothing. That could have gone either way, but from a team perspective, that is absolutely perfect. Red Bull, they've got enough to be happy about. They know there's performance in that car. This is not going to be a one-horse race between the teams. Red Bull are in that mix, at least with Verstappen.
Well, the first pole position of the year goes to McLaren, and Lando Norris will be analysing all of that in the Checkered Flag podcast, which you can hear later on today. But in the meantime, we're going to carry on the discussion on 5 Sports Extra. But for now, I suppose it's good afternoon, good evening from Melbourne, and good morning, Ellie and Jeanette, up next on 5 Live Breakfast. Morning. And for those of you cool cats and kittens listening on 5 Sports Extra, we've got the rest of qualifying and time to breathe. Oscar Piastri has taken his helmet on and is just taking off some of his gear, that the leg warmers that he has on to secure his race suits. Just to reiterate how that ended then, Norris on pole, Piastri making it a front row lockout for McLaren. Max Verstappen starts third ahead of George Russell, and actually it was Tsunoda right at the very end who managed to get a lap time in to put himself in the top 5 ahead of Albon. Exceptional qualifyings for the Racing Bulls and the Williams, both of them out-qualifying the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, with Gasly and then Sainz rounding out the top 10.
Yeah, it's got to go down as a really disappointing afternoon for the two Ferraris. Charles Leclerc didn't see exactly what happened, but he aborted his lap in the final run. And Hamilton, although he got the lap in and it was an improvement for him, he was still 2/10 off the other Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, which has been about the gap between those two guys all weekend long. Maybe that's to be expected with the massive learning curve that Lewis Hamilton has coming to an entirely new team and a new car. But they've got work to do if they're going to try and match the guys up front, the McLarens and the Red Bulls of this world.
Well, it's a 10th career pole for Lando Norris, and it's a 7th front row start for Oscar Piastri, and they will have the best views in the house as they now make their way on the back of a golf cart, and we'll hear from our pole sitter hopefully in a few moments' time. Max Verstappen, then room for 3 on the golf cart. And that's the thing, you can never rule out Max Verstappen, can you? Because even though Red Bull look like, well, maybe on paper they're the 4th slowest car coming into this weekend, well, Verstappen's still able to maximise it, and he didn't always have the cleanest of laps either.
No, I think there was a considerable amount more pace in that Red Bull of Max Verstappen. We didn't see exactly what happened. We haven't had a replay yet of Verstappen's final lap, but I did catch a glimpse as the camera just panned onto him of just dipping a rear wheel into the gravel at one of the final corners of the lap, and that must have cost him some time, because to be ending up 3-4 tenths behind McLaren of Norris, that's not the pace that we know is in that Red Bull. So there's more to come from Verstappen.
But a disappointing day for Ferrari. This is not where they would have wanted to kickstart their season. Questions will be asked, heads being scratched. Leclerc 7th, Hamilton 8th. I suppose if Hamilton's going to take anything from that, is that he's pretty close to Leclerc and not where he was when we kicked things off in FP1.
Well, and we know that Lewis Hamilton has a considerable strength when it comes to race day. One of his things is the vast experience that he has will play out in a race situation perhaps more than we know he's able to do in qualifying. That's been the story of the last few years for him. Struggling on a Saturday, much stronger on a Sunday. So from there, from where he sits on the grid, P8, he will be able to do something. He will be able to potentially move forward, particularly if we get the rain that's definitely promised for tomorrow. We know how good he can be in those conditions.
Can we have a shout out as well for those in the midfield after we hear from our pole sitter Lando Norris and our post-qualifying interviews hosted by Naomi?
Congratulations. It's P3 this time around. Big turnaround from yesterday. How are you feeling with that performance?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, yesterday was quite tough. So for us to be in P3 today, I take that. So the quali laps are very exciting. I think a lot of good grip around here and some fast corners. So that's always very fun in an F1 car.
Well, we heard you talking a little bit about tyres overheating. How much of a compromise was that for you out there today? Yeah,
it was quite tough in qualifying. I don't know, of course, how the others felt, but for me, it never felt like we nailed that bit. But on the other end, I think the gap was quite big to them, so it wouldn't have mattered in terms of position.
Okay, well, we hear that there's going to be rain tomorrow. Will you be doing the rain dance, or will you prefer it to be dry tomorrow?
No, for me it's fine, dry or wet. Of course, in the wet there are always some crazy things that can happen, and especially around here it can be quite slippery, I think. But it's same for everyone, right? So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Okay, well, good luck. Enjoy it out there.
Naomi Schiff talking to Max Verstappen. Next up, we'll hear from the home hero.
Oscar, massive congratulations. It's a front row start, an all McLaren front row. How are you feeling having done that at home for the first time?
Pretty happy. It's obviously great to start the year on the front row. Probably one position further back that I would have liked, but no, I think it's a great start to the year and great to have the team on the front row. So now we'll reset and see what tomorrow has in store. But pretty happy with how qualifying went. Just not quite enough in Q3, but it's the start of a long season, so I'm pretty happy with a solid start.
The margins out there have been so close. It was less than a tenth between you and Lando. Bit of sound issues there. What did it come down to? Where were the little seconds left?
I mean, I think it's probably a little bit in a couple of places. I think the Sector 3, I lost a little bit of time compared to the lap before from Q2, and I also locked up there and went off in the first run of Q3, so I didn't really want to do that twice, and yeah, maybe left it a little bit on the table, but I think it was pretty tricky out there for everybody. Q3 at the start looked pretty messy, so I'm just happy to be on the front row and have a good start.
Okay, congratulations, well done.
Thank you, cheers.
Lando, a massive congratulations. You are our first pole sitter of 2025. How does that feel in this moment?
Thank you. Yeah, very good. I mean, it's the perfect way to start the year, you know. So, I mean, first of all, a big congrats to the team. Everyone at McLaren's done an amazing job to continue from where we were at the end of last season to start with a 1-2. But it's just quality, right? So let's wait and see tomorrow. I know it's going to be a tricky race, but today was the perfect way to start.
We saw that the conditions out there were tricky, drivers going off the track, going over curbs. How hard was it to put it all together with the margins being so fine?
Very. I mean, you know, the team have done such a good job. The car is extremely quick, and when you put it together, it's unbelievable. It's just difficult to put it together. So really, it was like a little fight between me and Oscar today, and it was a tough one. And especially after my first lap, where I went off and got track limits, then I knew the second lap I had to. You're in a tough position. You need to take a lot of risk, but you also need to make sure you get the lap clean and don't make any mistakes. So it's a difficult mindset to go into that final lap, but managed to pull it off, so very happy.
Well, tomorrow's another day. We don't know what the weather's going to do just yet, but how confident are you that you might be standing on the top step of the podium tomorrow?
I mean, I'm never going to get ahead of myself. I'm not that kind of guy. So, you know, I'm confident that the car's in a great position, but we've also never run in the wet. We know how quick Max is and Red Bull is in the rain. So let's wait and see. Many opportunities for everyone, but also a lot of new things that we're going to be learning along the way. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, fantastic. Well, big congratulations once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, there you have it then, your top three for the Australian Grand Prix grid. Lando Norris will start on pole position. Oscar Piastri makes it a McLaren front row lockout. And Max Verstappen, the reigning champion, begins his defence from third. George Russell with a good result for Mercedes in fourth, and an absolutely mega result for Yuki Tsunoda and the Racing Bulls fifth, and Alex Albon and the Williams sixth. The two Ferraris, disappointment for them. Leclerc ahead of Hamilton in seventh and eighth, with Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz rounding out the top 10. Isaac Hadjar was 11th ahead of Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, Jack Doohan and Gabriel Bortoleto are the top 15. Kimi Antonelli with work to do in his Mercedes down in 16th ahead of Nico Hülkenberg. The same for Liam Lawson and Esteban Ocon. 19 of the drivers to set a lap time, with no laps on the board for Oliver Behrman. Continued problems for him. Let's hope he gets out for Sunday's Grand Prix, which you can listen to on BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll be on air from 3:45 in the morning. It's an early one, so make sure you set your alarms ahead of Lights Out from 4 o'clock. My thanks to Rosanna Tennant, to Andrew Benson, to Mark Priestley. I've been Harry Benjamin, and this has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.